live. Live. We're live from my parents' house. So, hello and welcome to Jessie Bear Book Club. Today we are talking about Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. It is one of my favorite books of all time. I have read it probably 5 or 6 times now. I first read it when I was, I think, about 13, and I have reread it multiple times since. Last time I reread it was probably 5 years ago or thereabouts, but I have since just reread it. I got way big into dinosaurs again because Walking with Dinosaurs came out on the BBC in the UK and PBS in America. So I don't know, I was having a real dinosaur kick, and I just started rereading The Lost World, which I haven't read as many times. So I just thought this would be a fun little live to do. I have some book club questions. This is going to be more informal than like a full rundown of Jurassic Park. Everybody basically knows the story. We know it's different from the books, but not greatly different. I think the movie did a reasonably good job portraying the book. The book, of course, is a lot more dramatic, as you can expect, but that's just books for you, and I like both. I will preface this by saying I actually read Jurassic Park, the book, before I seen the movie. Even though I loved the dinosaurs as a kid, because I grew up in Spain and we lived off-grid most of my childhood, nobody ever had it on video, so I simply never got to watch it. I watched it for the first time, I think, when I was like 13, 14. So I definitely enjoyed the book, and one of the bits that really disappointed me when I finally got to see Jurassic Park after having read the book was the fact they didn't do the famous bit. Well, the famous bit for me stands out in my head because of the tongue. When the T-Rex's tongue wraps around Tim's face and starts dragging him towards the jaws, like towards the waterfall, and you know the jaws are on the other side of that waterfall. That, to me, every time I read that, it gives me shivers. I remember the first time I read it, I was actually in this room on that sofa on the other side of the screen, and I was like, oh, like I actually thought he was going to die. So I love the book. I love Alan Grant. I do not like Ian Malcolm. You know, I just don't really like him. I think he's a bit of a dick. But I think he's meant to be a bit of a dick, and he kind of redeems himself in Lost World, but we're not here to talk about Lost World today. We are here to talk about Jurassic Park. Ellie Sattler. I mean, I actually think out of all of them, Ellie Sattler is probably better in the movie. Hi, Lynn. I do think Ellie Sattler is better in the movie. Muldoon is far better in the, what's it called, book, I think. I think the idea of the South African gamekeeper turned now dinosaur warden. Thank you, Jessica. If everybody could give me a like, that would be great. We're talking about Jurassic Park today. So, Jurassic Park. There will be plenty of spoilers in this, just for people who know, but I think most people have watched the movie, and we're talking about the book. And the book is a little bit different. So Muldoon is actually probably one of my favourite characters in the book, simply because he understands that these are animals. He is not in awe of them the way that a lot of other people in this book are. And I like that. Hello to everyone who just joined. If you've got any questions about Jurassic Park the book, stick them in the comments, or any questions about dinosaurs. One of my favorite things about Jurassic Park is how you get to see the dinosaurs before we even get to the park. There's the bit with the little doctor station, there's the bit on the beach, there is medical labs and the faxes and photographs of the compy that is found, and I really like that. I think that's a really good introduction to what's happening without seeing the full picture, which is brilliant. And when you do get to the island, it feels like, yes, this is the build-up. This is what's meant to be happening. Hi, Sophia Williams. So it's good. I really like the idea of when you first meet, what's he called? Hammond, John Hammond. When you first meet Hammond, hi Lynn, the fact that he's been carrying, like, you hear the story about him carrying around the little elephant that's like this big. I just thought that was great. I was like, why isn't there a book about this tiny elephant and like shrinking, you know, normal animals to like this size? Like, imagine shrinking a tiger down to be like the size of a mouse. I still think, you know, that was a missed trick. I guess it's been done before. It's probably been done to death, so Michael Crichton avoided it. I'm trying to think if there's any other great bits I want to talk about when it comes to Jurassic Park before I jump straight into my questions. These are some book club questions. You know, I always thought the way that Jurassic Park ended with, you know, the bombing of the island, to me felt slightly anticlimactic. So I was really glad that, you know, we get the Lost World later on. I kind of wish there was a follow-up to the Lost World. I mean, I read Dragon Teeth by Michael Crichton as well. So that's kind of a prequel. It's not too bad. But I definitely will be getting on to my questions. So, what was the main cause of Jurassic Park? I'm going to say probably scientific negligence. People that didn't understand animals, not understanding that you can't always train animals, that wild animals will continue to be wild, and thinking that their amusement park, you know, people, almost like people in costumes, they're going to behave a certain way, they're going to interact with things a certain way, this is how they're going to be. So I think that was one of the main causes. I also think that the oversight of bringing people in when people had already been injured, that was a big problem, you know. Anything else that caused Jurassic Park? I mean, Nedry, obviously, but John Hammond shouldn't have blackmailed Nedry. That's not in the movie, that's in the book. John Hammond wants more work out of Nedry and he blackmails him. He writes letters to other clients saying that he's bad at his job, and that kind of causes Nedry to react in the way he does, trying to steal the embryos. So there's a lot of different factors, but I think with any sort of theme, not theme park, but like wildlife park, things are bound to go wrong. Animals act out, never work with animals or children. Isn't that the rule in TV? And yeah, I think that was a definite oversight. Like, people go to zoos all the time, but like zoos, a lot of these animals have been bred, you know, in captivity. Lots of them aren't rescued, and we know how these animals behave. So that's my big one. If anybody else thinks there's another cause to why Jurassic Park failed, leave it in the comments. Okay. Do you think it could have been possible to make Jurassic Park safe? You know what? I do. And I think you see that in pretty much Jurassic World. When you see Jurassic World, you know, Jurassic Park failed, but Jurassic World is just doing its thing. Oh, thank you, Lynn, for sharing. And I think one of the things they could have done with Jurassic Park is they could have only made herbivores. I know, more teeth. But like, I mean, dinosaurs are dinosaurs, right? You go to the zoo, I mean, I don't care if I'm looking like at a hippo or a rhino. I mean, they're pretty damn cool. They're still dangerous animals, you know? You keep saying that, you're a kid, Lynn. They're dangerous animals, and that's really cool. You know? And people like them. I mean, if they'd only made brontosauruses and brachiosaurs and diplodocuses, like, I would still have gone. You know, I know there won't be a Jurassic Park ever, but like, I definitely would have gone to that. And like, they could have made like other things like the duckbills. Like, they're really interesting. Apatosaurs. Like, I could keep going. You know, they didn't have to make velociraptors, and I think it also comes back to the fact that if an animal attacks someone, it should be put down, and John Hammond wouldn't let that happen. You know, so I think, yeah, if you only made herbivores, you could make a triceratops, make a stegosaurus. Like, they wouldn't be attacking people like T-Rex or the velociraptors. You know, like, I think you definitely could have made Jurassic Park safe by not making man-eating dinosaurs. I mean, kind of makes sense. I mean, they might have bit someone. 1,000-Pound Sisters and Amy Slayton getting bitten by the camel springs to mind. But, you know, who knows? Okay, we've got our next question on our list. Do you think the disaster and the bombing of the park could have been avoided? Well, that was kind of covered in the last question, right? I think once the disaster happens, the bombing of the island was inevitable. You know, I think once the disaster happened, they kind of had to bomb because they had no way out of this. This park was going to be overrun. You give that place a year, everything would have bred. It would have been overrun, especially with velociraptors, and they didn't really have much of a choice. Could the disaster have been avoided? Yes, John Hammond could have treated his staff correctly, and it would have happened. He could have given Nedry the right amount of money. He could have let Malden have weapons. I can't remember the name of the other guy who runs the computer system. He could have had him trained better. You know, there's a lot of different things that could have happened. They could have had more people on site. They could have had more normal gas-powered vehicles instead of electric cars. Like, there's so much stuff that could have been done so that this whole disaster could have been avoided, you know? But then again, hindsight is 2020. Okay. Anybody got any questions in the comments about Jurassic Park or about dinosaurs? Okay, we are moving on to our next question. Was Nedry's death inevitable because of his greed? You see, this to me is an interesting question, right? Okay, so Nedry is kind of portrayed as this, in the book as well, as a fat slob, but a fat slob that's been hard done by. His company has been taken advantage of. He's angry at Hammond. He's not getting paid properly for his work. They have this, you know, InGen have threatened. Is it InGen or the other one? Anyway, John Hammond has threatened legal action. He's written letters to other clients of Nedry. I don't think Nedry is actually being greedy in like the conventional sense. I think Nedry is just trying to show these people that, like, lack of a better word, like I can fuck with you. You know, like I can, you know, you hired me and you're not treating me right. Like, I can mess up. You know, I think, you know, if a company is very reliant on you and they don't treat you well, you know, some people will pull rank. Not everybody, but some people will. I mean, if you know the shop doesn't open because you're not in, you just say, I'm not coming in. Like, what are they actually going to do? So I think Nedry's death was avoidable. I mean, it's pretty avoidable. You could have taken, if he'd taken the right road, it would have been completely avoidable. Nedry's death, again, in the book, when I read that, even now, when his head is inside the Dilophosaur's mouth and he's praying that this will soon be over because of the poison and the blinding and the animals eating his guts. Like, that is such a well-written scene. I love that. You know, and I love the fact it's from his POV, which you don't really get with, you know, the Ed Regis. You don't get that with Ed Regis, so I really liked that. Moving on to our next question. I think I'm gonna try and read The Lost World pretty quickly and then do another one of these pretty soon. So, our next question. Do you think that Hammond really cared about taking the world of science to a new level? No, I don't think that. I think that was Hammond's cover. I think Hammond was a money man at the end of the day. That was all he cared about. He cared about money and he cared about being the first to do it. That is what John Hammond cared about in the book anyway. He cared about money and he wanted to be the first company to bring dinosaurs to the general public. And he wanted the prestige that would give him, I feel. I don't know how everybody else feels. I know in the book he is kind of like a sentimental old grandpa, but in the movies he's like a sentimental old grandpa, but in the books he's really not. And he definitely gets his comeuppance at the end when the compies eat him, and I think that's really well juxtaposed with the little girl at the beginning. Like, she was injured and could have died because of this man's negligence, and it's kind of very interesting that these small little chicken-sized dinosaurs get him at the end. I liked that. I think that in the book, like, he really got what he deserved, and I would like, I've seen this batted about the internet that there should be like an adults version of Jurassic Park, like not a, you know, U or PG version. There should be an adults version where it's like blood and guts and gore, like a proper horror movie. And that is something I'd really like to see. I'd like to see John Hammond get his comeuppance, and I would also really like to see the tongue scene where they like cover Tim's head and the tongue and like pull him forward. I would also like to see Ed Regis getting played with like by the the baby T-Rex when he's like torturing him. I would like to see all of that. Okay, we are moving on to our next question about Jurassic Park. If you have any questions, just shoot them into the comments. Okay, next one. Would it have been possible for the park to work if it had different extinct species? And I think I covered this earlier in this live when I said, yes, if they'd only done herbivores, I think the park would have worked. But it also might have worked if they'd done mammals, because we know a lot about mammals. We know about how mammals communicate, how a lot of mammals' brains work. So maybe if they'd done something like Ice Age animals, maybe it would have worked better, but then you wouldn't have had the hype around it. I mean, I'd still go see a saber-toothed tiger and a mammoth, 100%. But I don't know if the rest of the world would want to. So that's interesting. I mean, you could get giant sloths from the Ice Age. What other extinct animals could they have done? I'm trying to think. I mean, there's like water animals, but they're like hard to contain. But then again, you might have got away with that because it's like they can't really get out of the tank. Yeah, you could have done. Well, they kind of do that though in the like in Jurassic World with the I can't remember its name. My mind's gone blank. Big thing that eats the shark. Oh my god, I completely forgot its name. I'm so silly. Anyway, but yeah, I think it could have worked. I think it could have worked. If it had different species, I think, yeah, they definitely could have done it. Okay, so moving on to our next question about Jurassic Park. Could the park have worked if it wasn't propelled by Hammond's greed? No, I don't think the park could have worked. I think it was always bound to fail because they have such dangerous animals. No matter what, I think even if you have the best intentions, like animals will get loose. I think most zoos have had like at least one animal of some sort get loose at some point. Where my mum is from in Northern Ireland, there was like quite a famous thing. I think it was like the early 2000s. There used to be like a safari park near where my granddad lived, and it was like kind of run down, like cheap day out. But all the chimpanzees got loose. There's videos somewhere on YouTube of like all these chimpanzees wreaking havoc, and this was like in 2003. And like this place had been open since the 70s. Like my mum remembered going when she was a kid. So yeah, I think animals in any zoo are bound to get out at some point. So it's better not to have like very, very dangerous animals in a zoo, I was gonna say, but Hammond wanted the really dangerous animals because they were the ones that were going to draw attention. I mean, it's mentioned multiple times in the book that the T-Rex is the main attraction. So, moving along, we got more questions about Jurassic Park. If anybody has any dinosaur related questions or any Jurassic Park related questions, stick them in the comments, please. We have 3 questions left. If the dinosaurs weren't so violent, would the park have been a success? I think it could have been. I think that Wu says this in the book. He talks about how he wants to tamper with the animals' DNA to make them more docile. And I think, yeah, like if John Hammond had let Wu go in and spend a lot more money, because like he didn't want to kill these animals because they were an investment. Like these animals were the attractions. He was not wanting to spend all this money, and he'd let Wu tamper with the DNA to make these animals more docile. Yeah, I think the park could have been far more successful, and people still would have seen what they wanted to see. But Hammond didn't want to spend the money. I think that's very important to remember. But this park is taking it's like 5 or 6 years in the books to get up and going, and he's invested so much money. But I don't think he would need to do it with the herbivores. Like all he really needed to do it with was the raptors and like the Dilophosaurs and the T-Rex and maybe the compies, like take out those poison sacs. in the compies. Okay, we're moving on down. We got 2 questions left. Okay. What was the main flaw of Jurassic Park? Okay, this is where like my weird like off-grid kid thing is gonna come in, right? The power. The power was the main flaw. Everything was fine until they realized that the backup generator needed to be switched over from the backup generator to the main generator. That to me was the main flaw. And the main flaw, the guy working on computers didn't know he had to do this. That to me, I was like, oh, and the fact the electric could even go off in the first place. But then again, like, you're on an island, blah, 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 and I know now we have solar panels. Back then we didn't. But I still think it bears in mind, like, electricity is so important if you're going to be housing, like, velociraptors. Like, I think the fact that once all the power was off, it went to backup power, and then you had to switch over to main generator power. I think that was a massive flaw in the system that was overlooked and probably should have been tested with more docile animals beforehand. But like I said earlier, hindsight's 2020. Okay. Do you think Hammond would have still wanted the park if it didn't have carnivores? No. I think Hammond wanted carnivores in the park because they were the main money draw. That's just my opinion, but I think I'm right. I think he wanted carnivores because it's like having the best, I don't know, fairground ride, like the best roller coaster. Like having a T-Rex is like having the most ultimate roller coaster. Like people are going to come specifically to see the T-Rex, so I think, yeah, it wouldn't have appealed to him really, and I think that's why he didn't do the thing where he made like mini elephants, and that's why he didn't do like animals from the Ice Age. These are just my thoughts, but this is where we are. Anybody got any questions before we finish up about Jurassic Park, about dinosaurs? My favorite character is like, Grant. Everyone loves Grant, right? Everyone loves Alan Grant. He's definitely like up there. And then I would say Calhoun. I think it's Calhoun. The park ranger guy. I love it when he's drunk in the book and he's like yelling at Ellie and she's like running back and forward in front of the velociraptors and he's yelling at her and he's like, keep them busy, get in here. Like, I thought that was really funny, kind of relatable. Like, a lot of guys like that. If you grew up in the middle of nowhere, he was funny. And then my third favorite character, I don't know, it's a hard one. I mean, I like Tim. Tim is pretty good, gives a good POV. But you know what? I'm going to go off topic here, and I think I'm going to go for Nedry simply because his death scene is so good. His death scene is amazing in the books. So yeah, those are my top 3. I'm going to go Alan Grant, Calhoun, and then Dennis Nedry. That's my top 3 characters. My top moment in the book is definitely tongue round face, pulling him through the waterfall. Burned in my memory. I'm trying to think. My favorite dinosaur, probably the Dilophosaurs, just because like that spit thing. They're cooler in the book because they're so much bigger in the book. They're like 7 foot tall in the book or something. So like that's pretty cool. But yeah, this is my live. I'm gonna finish up now. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I think we all love dinosaurs. Who doesn't? They're the best. I will try and do another live later this week covering The Lost World. I only started it yesterday, but because I've read it before and it's not the biggest book in the world, like I'm hoping I'm gonna fly through it. And then I was thinking I might do a couple of lives regarding Taipan and Gaijin, the books I read. Those are like character studies, and I was hoping to do actual like full-on videos about them. But I have the scripts with me. I'm here at my parents' and I don't have any of my recording equipment. So I can do lives, but I can't really do like video recordings. So I was thinking I might just do a couple of lives about that. I'm not too sure. I might not. Depends how I'm feeling. And until next time, guys, I hope you all enjoyed this live, and I will see you next time. There's loads of content on my channel, historical fiction. I'm gonna do some more monster stuff. I think I do like a monster book, and I've been reading the Meg. I started reading the Meg, and I have like a little like thing on my phone. I've been keeping notes about like different books I've been reading, and Jurassic Park, Jaws, the Meg, and then there's a couple of others by a couple of other like monster writers that I've been reading, and I'm thinking I might do a comparison on those at some point. It might just be like a little live, like not a full sit down video, but a little live. I do enjoy doing live. Okay guys, well until next time, bye!